Okay guys, before we get into the video, I want to tell you all about this great news that I have, and that is Trophy Smack is now an official sponsor of the Fantasy Flock Network. And not only are they an official sponsor of the Fantasy Flock Network, but they are offering every listener a special deal when it comes to buying fantasy football trophies this offseason. And if y'all don't know what Trophy Smack is, it is a fantasy football trophy seller website that sells premium trophies. Stumbling over my words here. Let's just get into it. Let me show y'all what they have to offer. I'm really just going to point out this top row because we get down here. Don't like what's going on here. I don't know if y'all want to buy a trophy for the loser of y'all's league like they actually have in the league TV show, if y'all have ever watched that. But I think that these trophies, especially right here, these top ones up here look really sharp. I'm going to show y'all how you can access the special offer that I have. And so right here, just say you want this trophy. You talk to your league mates about it. Go through. You can actually put past year's winners on the trophy base already. So this doesn't have to be something that's just a brand new league, even though it is a great way to have leagues stay together longer. So we're going to add that to our cart, and the special offer I have is you're going to get a free ring with any trophy purchase. So go down here, add a ring to your cart because it's free if you use the promo code. We're going to add that to our cart. Go to checkout. Let's see if this will load. Here we go. And then we are going to, it's already in there for us. The promo code is FLOCK. I don't think it will automatically take it off for you, but make sure you enter promo code FLOCK to get your free ring. And I'll have a link to the website in the description of the video. Make sure you go through the link, enter promo code FLOCK. I believe the promo code should work even if you don't go through the link, but just be safe, go through there, and thanks so much, guys. All right, guys, one of the most exciting times of the year is coming up, and this is when we are able to get a full profile for these rookies coming in. We're actually going to know their testing. We're going to know their real size, because if you go to like a college website and you see the size of a player listed, sorry to break the news to you, that's just not accurate. It's never accurate. They always give them a couple inches, give them a couple pounds. So we're going to actually see what they are at the NFL Combine. And I'm going to break down what I think is important at the NFL Combine, what I think we should take away for each position, not every position on the field. I'm just going to cover the basics. I'm going to cover running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And really, that's about it. I want to look at this through a fantasy football lens and try to identify how we can get a small edge over our competitors when it comes to looking at the Combine. And the first thing we can do is something that really is just adjusting to what the market's doing. Right now, we kind of have a good idea, at least how these top rookies are ranking for us. And you see this among consensus around all the boards. We know CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, they're both the top wide receivers. We see a tier of 3 running backs and J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor. Then we see the next 2 running backs, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and so on, so on. We have our tiers there, and we know that we're ranking a lot of these guys based on what we project them to do athletically. Like, say we have Henry Ruggs as just say you have him as wide receiver 5. That is based on him being one of the fastest wide receivers in the league. That's not necessarily based on his talent as a wide receiver. We're projecting him as just a Dynasty rookie wide receiver number 5 solely due to what he can do with his speed. I mean, because that's going to get him drafted in the top 15 in the NFL draft. But, okay, let me get some water. All right, sorry, guys. Got some water. But, okay, so basically the point of this is we don't want to double count those stats. If we're already ranking Henry Ruggs and Jalen Reagor near the top of this class when it comes to the wide receivers based off of their athleticism, when we see them go to the Combine and see them put up impressive numbers to confirm what we already believe and to confirm our ranking, we don't want to be moving them up draft boards. And the same goes the other way around. I mean, if we see a wide receiver that we project to be slow, but just say he was great in college and we're like, this wide receiver is a fantastic talent, he just doesn't have the athleticism, so I'm going to put him here at wide receiver 6. this could be seen as a Bryan Edwards from South Carolina, where we think that he is a great receiver, but we don't think he has the athleticism. If he comes out and he just tests how we think he's going to, we shouldn't be moving him farther down because he was unathletic. We already had that baked into the ranking. So just number one rule, don't double count what we are already projecting into these rankings. Now, the second thing I'm looking for is I want to be able to see that these guys test the way that they played in college. But what I mean by that, I'm just going to give two examples. So James Washington, for a couple years ago, coming out of OSU, if y'all remember, he was a deep threat specialist. And what's the number one thing you look for when you're prototyping deep threat wide receivers? You want them to have that speed, because the quarterback's not going to have that much time to let them get down the field if they're slow and they can't accelerate. So that's one of the positions that we actually care about 40-yard dash time. We care about the wide receivers that are going to stretch the field. We want to see them run fast. So when we see James Washington come out, who was a Biletnikoff winner, I believe, and he was a great wide receiver, and we thought that he was going to be at the top of this class and expected him to test that way and test the type, like the type of wide receiver he was, and he comes and I don't remember his exact numbers, but he was slow. He was disappointing. That's a major red flag. That's a significant indicator that he was just able to dominate college competition, and he's not going to be able to translate his game to the NFL, and if he did, he would be a major outlier. And we can kind of see this the other way around too. But what I mean by that is, if we look at Paris Campbell last year, Paris Campbell came out and he ran extremely fast. He prototyped athletically as a guy that you would expect to be like James Washington was in college, that he ran down the field, he got open deep, and that's where he made big plays. But the reality of it was Paris Campbell wasn't that at all. Paris Campbell was a short field specialist in college. He got a lot of his work from the screen games and yards after catch. So he also was kind of an outlier in that he didn't test the same athletically that he played in college. So that's the second thing I'm looking for when it comes to overall NFL combine. Those are both, they both apply to both positions of the ball. Now let me jump into more specific things that I'm looking for each position. And first, let's start with the running backs. Now the running backs, I believe, have a couple important things that we're going to see tested. And the number one thing is BMI. And BMI is very important for these running backs because we want to be able to see if they have the size to be a 3-down workhorse NFL running back. We don't want them to come in with a below average BMI. And that just really limits them and limits the amount of touches that they can see in an NFL game. We don't see that many NFL top-tier workhorse running backs with a slight body frame. That can really lower them down NFL teams' draft boards and kind of peg them into a passing down role, and they're not really going to get goal line work if that's the case. So that's a big thing that we look for. And now we're going to look for some explosion. I know y'all like FF Rish. I've had him on here a couple times, and he created a launch score metric. I believe that's what he calls it. And it basically, he looks at the 10 and 20-yard splits of the 40-yard dash and the broad jump. Now, all of these testings just show the explosive power of the running back, and it's just kind of natural athleticism, in my opinion. That's something really important we can look at, see how they can hit through the hole and how they can get going real fast. Last thing we look at, and I don't want to say it's the most important thing. I think BMI for fantasy purposes could be definitely near the top just because it illustrates such a perfect picture of who these running backs are. But we want to look at their size adjusted speed. And I'm looking at this from Speed Score. If I took this straight from Roto Underworld, I'm not going to pretend like I can do any of these fancy metrics. I just kind of understand them and understand what goes into them. And essentially, Speed Score is a combination of a player's BMI and his 40-yard dash. So it's essentially a 40-yard dash time, but you adjust for the size of the running back, because obviously a 220-pound running back running a 4.5 flat is a lot more impressive than a 190-pound running back running a 4.49. That's kind of common sense. So the Speed Score kind of puts it into context, and I'm going to just go through real quick the top 10 Dynasty running backs when it comes to just ADP and give what their speed scores were so y'all can show how important this metric is. So first, Christian McCaffrey, he has a 65th percentile speed score. It's actually one of the lower ones on this list. Then we see Saquon Barkley, and not surprisingly, we can remember from a couple years ago, Saquon Barkley just absolutely destroying the combine. He had a 99th percentile speed score. Then we have Alvin Kamara, 60th percentile speed score. Ezekiel Elliott, 95th percentile speed score. Dalvin Cook, 74th percentile. Nick Chubb, 90th percentile. Joe Mixon, 93 percentile. Derrick Henry, 97th percentile. Miles Sanders, 76th percentile. And Josh Jacobs, 29th percentile. So, and then by the way, with that Josh Jacobs, we can almost completely throw that out the window because that was at a pro day and he skipped the combine last year because of a groin injury. And there were reports that he wasn't fully healthy whenever he ran at his pro day. So, and obviously you watch Josh Jacobs on the field and you know he's faster than that. So we can kind of throw the Jacobs one out the window. And if we're looking at this list, the 60th percentile is the absolute lowest. And we see almost over half the list have a 90th percentile or above. So this is so important, especially if we look at running backs. Like a running back that I faded a lot last year after the combine was David Montgomery. We saw David Montgomery come in. I don't even remember about what he ran, but he was almost the consensus RB1 before the combine. Everyone loved him. Film grinders loved him just because what he could do while breaking tackles. And he came in and he did not hit a minimum threshold for this. He was slow, and that just limits your big play potential. And I don't want a running back who at most is going to get me 19 rushing yards on his biggest play of the year. I believe, I don't want to butcher it. Leave it in the comments if I'm wrong. I love it when y'all comment if I'm wrong because I hate, like if you comment something I'm wrong and I look it up and you're right, I always pin it. Like I always give it a little heart so people know. It's because I can't go through and edit the video after that. But anyway, David Montgomery, I believe he didn't have a 20-yard rush or more his entire collegiate career. And that shows whenever he comes to the combine and just really is so unimpressive. So really, but all these things go into draft capital with running backs because teams really care about the athleticism of the running back they're drafting. So it's so important to get these running backs drafted highly so they're going to get the opportunity in the NFL, score points for our fantasy team. So we want them to do well in these categories at the combine. Now with wide receivers, I don't think the combine is as important as it is with running backs because we're mainly going to trust the production and their on-field performance, but we just want to make sure that they hit these minimum thresholds. Like if we look at Laquan Treadwell a couple years ago, look, it was the Ezekiel Elliott class, I believe it's 2016, maybe 2015, something like that. But we know Laquan Treadwell was everyone's wide receiver one. Pre-combine, he comes in, just completely tanks it. We all remember him with backwards hat going up to the press conference, and it was a big story, and he just did not perform well. I believe he didn't even run at the combine. He may have ran just at his pro day. But so basically with wide receivers, we don't want any massive outliers. And now this actually surprised me. Let's move to tight ends. It really surprised me that athleticism matters so much at tight end. I had no idea. And I just assumed that, honestly, because, you think of tight end, you think of Jason Witten. I'm thinking as long as you can block and you can run a couple of routes, you're good. We look at the top 10 Dynasty tight ends right now. All of them are athletic freaks. We have literally everyone on the list. I encourage you, go look at the tight ends, the top 10. I didn't write down the list. I went through it earlier, but basically the only people who aren't just freakish athletes are Hunter Henry, who is an above average athlete. He's like 75th percentile and everything. Austin Hooper, pretty much the same thing. And Zach Ertz is the only non-athlete at the tight end position. If you look at least combine testing and the top 10 Dynasty tight ends, everyone else just freakish when it comes to athleticism. So it actually matters. Surprising to say, I don't really have that much analysis else when it comes to tight ends, but athleticism matters. We want those high upside guys. Scott came on here a couple weeks ago, talked about teams looking for a tight end to build their team around. Really appreciate y'all watching the video. As always, give it a like if you enjoyed it. I really hope y'all got something out of it. And if you are a fan of Dynasty Fantasy Football, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you like watching college prospects and their film, make sure you go down to the description and subscribe to the Film Flock Room. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.